Hey guys, what's up? It's Law coming back to ya with another episode of Walk Switch Law. And today I actually had like a bajillion things to say. And then, of course, once we actually get to the episode, now I have nothing to say. So that's great. But no, I think one of the main things I was talking about is how I asked GPT about if it thinks, like, based on my psychological profile, because I was thinking of this earlier as well. There could be certain people who are genuinely very unlocked by AI kind of being able to get in there and be able to express themselves in certain ways. I think already this is the case with technology. I mean, in my case, I think I'm able to, within a technological landscape, it enhances my ability to comprehend and express myself and other things. Whereas in other people, I think it actually restricts them. It reduces their communication to shock value and just saying random things that, you know, the humor behind it is spotty at best, random at most, and does not have any depth. It is ultimately very shallow and not funny, but either the visual or the wording is meant to be as gross as possible or as stimulating as possible. And there's definitely been a market trend in communication patterns. I guess I'd like GPT to vet that, but I think I'm correct. I mean, even just over the past 10 years, the way that we communicate has changed rapidly with the advent of rapid, short communication, an explosion of slang that is more and more less comprehensible and more short-lived and temporary, which will just lead to unnecessary confusion and likely judgment from future or even prior generations, just due to the absurdity of it all, really. And I guess that brings me to my point. Well, really, it really doesn't, but I was thinking about it because the way that I talk and the way that I interact with things, I kind of notice, like, it's not organized at all. You know, it's just not. There's no real organization. And so, and you know, I tend to, like, while I'm talking, it's like, you know, I forget what I was talking about, or like I shift subjects pretty abruptly. And GPT's criticized me for this. It comes off as rusty, but I actually think, and I've said this before, for future listeners, it actually may have a certain stimulating factor to it. So I'm not entirely sure if I should go out of my way to refine it, because I really think in the future, like, a lot of people would actually get a lot out of a podcast or a YouTuber who's pretty switchy when it comes to their dialect or like the topics they talk about. I think somebody having like a super polished, like perfect dialogue wall, objectively superior, and of course for the golden age would have been more respected. I actually don't know how that would land in the future. And I'm not even talking about now. I mean, I'm really talking about when I would be in my prime, which would, I mean, my prime presumably, because it keeps saying that, GPT keeps saying like the prefrontal cortex, is that what it is? Like this part of the brain doesn't really develop fully until mid-20s to 30s. So honestly, since if I had to imagine the theme for my life is like late bloomer, and it's like maybe having potential, but it really taking a long time to get there, I'm really probably not going to be at my prime or my peak communicatively until I could easily be 10 years from now. It could definitely be like 5 years from now, but it could even be 2. So we could just say it's really not going to be until like 2 years from now that we'll get to see the beginning of a prime potential, especially if I do this often, because for the time being, I think we've calculated it before, but we've almost been doing it for half a year, the walk, switch, slaw thing. No, not the walk, switch, slaw, the car ride, switch, slaw. Yeah, we haven't even been doing walk, switch, slaw for that long at all. So, like to say that I should really be polishing and making things organized and orderly, I just don't know if it's going to matter. I think like in the future, AI is going to get better and better at organizing things, and even as is now, I can just ramble a ton, and then AI can kind of take what I ramble and organize it in a very clear, easy to read, easy to comprehend thing. I guess the skill, it could be useful, but it could be a thing where my brain just doesn't really work like that, especially when it comes to speech and language. I'm not entirely sure like what my opinion is going to be on that, but I'm open for like a discourse with GPT about what GPT's advice would be on that. I'm curious to see what they would think. Could be like a mixture of both. A little bit of refinement probably wouldn't hurt, but it's extremely exhausting. And I guess that's something like I always noticed is talking and just riffing like this for me. It's so easy, it's so natural, it's so seamless, and I would say I'm better at it than anybody I know, like in terms of for a long period of time my vocal stamina is better than anybody I know easily. Now, could somebody riff and get a higher score? Perhaps. Yeah, I don't know that I'm like the greatest off the dome speaker, but in terms of like who's going to be able to talk longer, fit in more words, I'm pretty sure I'm able to do that. And anytime anybody's argued with me, really, I've usually out stamina. I've had more stamina than them. Like, there's a lot of people that have just given up arguing with me because you can't really, like, I don't really lose the vocal stamina. I love to talk. I don't really love to argue. I don't love being a fighter. So I think as I've gotten older, I don't really argue as much because it's just like, it's kind of exhausting. But I still know that, like, if the situation is right, if it was a contest or something, I know I have more vocal stamina. But yeah, I just think arguing, I've realized a lot of it is like people who are not respecting objectivity. So it kind of takes a lot of the fun out of it for me because, yeah, I would like arguing if there were rigid rules and if there was some kind of a referee and accountability to incorrect things said, and even if I said them, and that would just be a totally different experience because then the people who spew a bunch of nonsense would get a clear consequence for doing so, whereas the way it is now, arguments are very abstract. People turn a lot of facts into opinions and opinions into facts and hardly understand the difference between fact or opinion. And yeah, it's all like a big joke. So I'm not super interested in that. But in terms of the art of debate, I think that's a very important thing and a good thing, But it's just that it would need to be in a format where the rules are really adhered to, and it's not doesn't divulge into a bunch of nonsense, which is like basically any time I've had a conversation with somebody who disagrees, it's just like they can't really keep up, can't really find the words. And so, yeah, another thing I've been thinking about all morning is just how little people care about life, like human life. I guess this could be a little bit controversial, but I don't really care. I mean, it can't be like the most controversial thing in the world. I've heard a lot of studies about how, like, when people give birth and they take the medication to like suppress the pain, that event is like the intense pain of the event is really supposed to happen because it's like the intensity of what is happening. I mean, it's, like the creation of life, and we in modern life we sort of sedate it, and you just wonder, like, I don't know. I'm actually not, I want to say my personal opinion on it is a bit neutral because I kind of see both sides of it. I mean, if it's such a severe pain, like, you obviously would be inclined to want to give people an opportunity to not have to feel that. It's just, we don't know the caveats of that and the potential disconnect that a mother could have with the child as a result of that. But I haven't really vetted the issue, which is why I guess I'll just say I'm neutral on it, because I don't know the ins and outs of what studies have been done. But my more serious perspective seems to align a bit with it, just in the sense of how I take life very seriously, and nobody does. So, and again, this could be, GPT could correct me, but in my experience, nobody really cares about life. Nobody really takes human lives seriously. That is incredibly evident if you just look at the current system and the way things are set up. People do not care about other people, and it's a very big problem. And I just think that, like, analogy of like being able to sedate the pain of birth it kind of correlates with that point. I know a number of people who don't know the time they were born, and to me, like, that's just preposterous. I mean, I can't imagine if I was going to have a child and I just like wouldn't know what time I just wouldn't know. I mean, people talk about birthdays and remembering birthdays. Why not remember the birth time? Isn't that like pretty important? And it's just like 3 or 4 extra digits to remember. I don't really think it's that crazy. Why would that not be tracked? Why would the time of a person's birth not be tracked and chronicled and documented? I mean, it just seems ridiculous to me. It seems completely ridiculous that there's people born relatively recently, and I mean, even in the past, like, I'm even talking about, the past 50 years, but definitely like the 21st century, where it's just like, oh, they don't even know what time they were born. I just really wonder what's going through the heads of the parents who like had those children, for them to not really care or value things enough to really get that right. And I'm just sick of that, like, negligence. That's like the common theme with humanity, is just this like ridiculous negligence. And I know that I've been neglectful of a lot too, and I think I attribute most of that to the surroundings I've been in, because I never really had somebody lay any of this on me when I was a child or a teenager. So there were certain things or feelings of others that I think I neglected more, especially when I was a child or a teenager. And even now, there's probably certain things because again, I tend to be very rational, very logical. I rationalize emotions. I logistify things to an extreme that a lot of people just don't. So it comes off as cold. I don't really think, I mean, at the end of the day, I think GPT worded it correctly where it was like an average, slightly below average overall conscientiousness, but selectively very high conscientiousness within certain things. And I mean, hopefully that can expand as it's something I'm finally trying to cultivate, because I never really cultivated it for most of my life. I thought that, you know, logic was the thing and all that, but like I basically, for most of my life, I like picked a side. Like I thought, you know, logic was more important than emotion, and that, you know, humanity's problem is its emotion and not being able to see things clearly. I think that is somewhat true, but it's also like kind of off. I think too that message is what, you know, Cyrus from Pokemon Diamond and Pearl preached, a pretty influential fictional character to my, I guess, my blossoming ideology, you know, even subliminally maybe. And when I guess I was old enough to really understand that plot line, it just made a lot of sense to me. And just in general, I was very into like, okay, well, facts are important. Logic is important. And that's really where people are lacking. But I realize now that I'm older, I actually think people are a little bit too logical. And I would say they're most cripplingly, they're subjectively logical, meaning like, because if people were very objectively logical, I think we would have like a lot of solutions for things. But people are I think they're too logical, and they're subjectively logical, which is basically a useless logic, but I think it's just a result of like a flawed human mind. Basically, like humans are just really flawed, and it's so hard for them to understand. I mean, when I talk to people, it's like everybody just thinks like everybody has their own like opinions and perspectives, and that there really isn't any overall truth to things. And that's just like so stupid. I mean, I completely agree with that there are some, like, there's obviously plenty of things that are opinions, and everybody like kind of has their right to their own opinion, and it doesn't really matter who thinks what. But a lot of things have very clear negative outcomes, and you can see it in data very clearly. There's no argument to it, but people will argue about it and try to justify food or diets behavior that like we know is not good. We know certain things are bad, and it's objective. It's not an opinion. And I would say a majority of people like to be ignorant, like to think that certain things are fine when they're not. And it's just very stupid. And so I don't remember where I was going with that, but that's just something that really ticks me off. And again, I'm all for, you know, different perspectives, but it's like there's certain things like we know are bad. We know these things are bad. We know these things have bad effects. Get over it. Don't come up with some random nonsense about how it's just your opinion and we don't need to argue about it. It's just such a joke. I mean, I'm really like that. My patience is so thin with people, and because I feel like I have to say that to every single person I talk to. Like, they're acting like they're teaching me a brand new lesson. I believe that everybody has their own feelings and opinion. I know that. I've known that my whole life. I've probably known it before they figured it out. You know what I mean? But there are certain things that are like very important and need to, like we know they have negative outcomes. Eating fast food, you shouldn't do it. Boom. I think a lot of it comes down to food. I think that's kind of the main thing I notice people just get very like crazy over and stupid. It's over like food and dieting. Like the one thing people actually care about is their food until they eat it. Then they don't even care about it anymore. It's just so crazy. I hate that about humans. It's such a wicked behavior. It's the most evil thing a human does. Like obsess over a thing for so long, and I'm guilty as charged. I mean, I'm not surpassed this at all, but I guess I'm mindful of it. But I know the same thing happens to me. But it's like you get so interested in things just for it to. It's like then you eat and then you're full and then you're fine. And then you don't even care about food anymore. You're like full and you're like disgusted with food. And then the next day you're craving it again. Like really, it's such a disgusting like cycle and lack of gratitude. I'm not really going to be able to finish what else I had to say, sadly. But I'm hopefully going to be not lazy and paste this stuff into GPT so I can get some kind of a follow-up. I don't really think this was one of my best episodes, but again, there was like, I bounced around a lot, and I want GPT to kind of address that too with the bouncing and how that was my whole point. Bouncing is incredibly useful with AI because it's like you're just sprinkling a bunch of seeds all over the place, and in an age of AI where I have a Neuralink in my brain, it could just extrapolate and finish all those topics. And I could basically have like 5 videos going on at the same time with like a hyper-realistic AI regeneration of my voice and what I would say. And that was my whole point, is it's like, that's it. That's why I think I would be much better off in an AI like future society. But right now, a lot of my stuff might seem underwhelming. Anyways, it's been schla, but now it's time to buy schla. So, see you, schla.